This Israel been Israel for the Israelite Brotherhood. You see what that say. You see what that say. You see what that say. This Israel been Israel for the Israelite Brotherhood. I want to do this video on them Babylonian scribes called the Sepharvaims. Those are the people we Hebrews abandoned our heritage to in the book of Jeremiah in 588 BC. You see, they were set up in our land. First, let's do a history and some history on their past. See, in the past, man, they come from this city called Super. Super is Sepharvaim. Super and Nipper. Those was twin cities. And those were the cities where the archives in the books of Babylon was kept. Them people wrote the history for Babylon. All is God. So whenever you read Babylonian history, you're reading about the history that the Sepharvaim wrote. They people are from Babylon. They had tablet schools. They had scribe schools. You know, they had schools of scribes. And people had to keep the king's history. You know what I'm saying? They king's history. You know, them Babylonian scribes. Them Babylonian scribes right there. Keeping the history and the commerce and the activities of Babylon. The news. They was like the news back then. Just like how they is now. They was the same back then. But then they was using cuneiform text. And these are the people that's responsible for Babylon history. The Sepharvaims. And this is their history right here. If you go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24, you'll see it says, and the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cutter and from Abel and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelled in the cities thereof. Okay, there was some Babylonian scribes that was put in our land in 722 BC. See, we were slipping on that Egyptian religion. I got some videos about that. You have to search the Israelite Brotherhood video archives, you know. But I have some videos on how the Egyptians tricked us out our heritage, and a whole bunch of other nations, you know, played a part in it. But these were Babylonian scribes that was placed in our land in 722 BC. You know, we was on that religion that Jeroboam brung up out of Egypt. You know, the King Josiah cleaned it up. But anyway, this is where they from. They from this city called Mori. Mori is short for Amorites. You know, and the Amorites occupied Babylon, Hammurabi Code, and you know, all that come from Babylon, and all that come from the Sepharvaims, the scribes who ran Babylon. They recorded this history in one of the most important documents that they try to say that's outside the Tanakh is the Hammurabi Code. All right, them Babylonian scribes, you know, they was placed in our land in 722 BC when we was slipping on that Egyptian religion, and the Syrians took the fighters away. You know, the tribe of Reuben, Gad, Manasseh, and Ephraim. You know, matter of fact, they the ones that occupied these people's relatives' land. You see, they kin people, the Amorites. You see, they would be Amorites too in Babylon, where they was from, because Babylon was founded by Amorite people, and the Amorites founded Sepharvaim, and those were slick Amorites, but they had mixed a little bit with some other folks for living in Babylon, since Babylon was the mixing nation. Okay, those people was placed in our land, and they were scribes. They were scribes. You know what I'm saying? They was Babylonian scribes. And they got a whole history of writing books. Matter of fact, all the books outside the Tanakh, they gonna be responsible for. You see, from Genesis to Malachi, that's a continuous history. That's a continuous story. That's a continuous history. But when you add those other books into it, then it kind of like, mess the whole Bible flow up. And those are the books that the Jews wrote, that the Jews created. They are Babylonian scribes. And they come from Babylon. And they was placed in our land in 722 BC. And when we went into Egypt in the book of Jeremiah, we abandoned our heritage to them. We abandoned our heritage to the Babylonian scribes, the people from Sepharvaim. And their Hebrew name is Seth Hardy. Those are the Seth Hardy Jews right there. That word Sepharvaim. Okay, we abandoned our heritage to them. And they was from Babylon. All right, them Babylonian scribes. You know what I'm saying? This one of them done rewrote the Bible. They were responsible for rewriting Tanakh history during Greek time. You see, because the exiles were basically, they recopied what Ezra and those prophets wrote, that history, and they synchronized themselves into the history during that time because the exiles were destroyed by the Greeks for mixing. The people that come from Babylon, that 1% that was taken and went to Babylon and come back, when they come back home, they start mixing. Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, those 5 prophets covered that 1% that went to Babylon and come back. And we have their history in the book of Ezra, going to be like a main book, because he go into detail how we started to mix with the folks of the land, and we couldn't pass our heritage off to them. We couldn't pass our heritage off to the Babylonian scribes. All right. If you go back to Numbers, this around about 406 BC, this is dealing with the prophet Moses. All right. And Moses gave unto them, even to the children of Gad, and to the children of Reuben, and unto the half tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with the cities thereof, and the coast, even the cities of the countries round about. Okay. Them Hebrews were given some of them Babylonian folks land, they kin, them Amorites. If you go look on the internet and type in Amorites and Babylon, you're going to see that the whole nation of Babylon was founded by Amorites. And those Amorites was placed in the promised land under the name Sepharvaim. You see, in those Sepharvaim Jews' Hebrew name is Sepharvaim, and the English translation name is Seth Hardy. So your Seth Hardy, Sephardic, and Sephardim Jews are Sepharvaim, and they was placed in Samaria in 722 BC when we were slipping on the Egyptian religion. That's like, let me expose Ashkenazi too. If you go to Numbers, Genesis, I think it's Genesis 9:27, you'll see that the Creator said that Ashkenazi would be in our heritage. No, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. This is the Israelite Brotherhood. This Israel been Israel. All right. All right, 9:27. Yah shall enlarge Japhet, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So that's saying Genesis 9 verse 27, the Creator telling the prophet Noah that Japhet kids gonna be living in Shem's house. You see, and the Elohim shall enlarge Japhet, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And those Canaanites, the Amorites are part of the Canaanite tribes. And those Amorites are servants to Japhet kids, the Ashkenazi that control the promised land today. So that prophecy actually came to pass. And you can see it right now today. But if you go look up Genesis 10, this is Noah's son, and then it gets down to the descendants of Japhet. Let's see. All right. Shalom. This the Israelite Brotherhood. Trying to bring some clarity to them Babylonian scribes. All right, Genesis 10. And and these are the generations of Ham, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japhet. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japhet, Gomer, Magog, Mahadi, Javan, Tubal, Machich, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer. Now this Gomer's son, this is Japhet's son. Ashkenazi, Raphat, and Togarmah, and the sons of Javan. You know, it go into all Japhet's sons, but you see one of his sons' name, Gomer's son's name. This is gonna be Japhet's grandson. His name is Ashkenazi. Well, the Ashkenazi Jews come from these Ashkenazis that Gomer's son, and how they get our heritage is that Ashkenazi code name in history is the Scythians. And the Scythians took over Chaldea. And then they took Babylon over. And when those Scythians came and attacked our nation during the Babylonian Wars, it was Scythians. That was Ashkenazi right there. You know, the Seth Hardy Jews was already placed in Samaria in 722 BC. That's Second Kings, chapter 17, verse 24. I just finished reading that. All right, Shalom. Second Kings. All right. Verse 24. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cuddar, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, which is the Hebrew word for Seth Hardy, Sephardic, and Sephardim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. Okay, and as you read chapter 17, you'll see that they started to do our heritage. See, so they feared the Elohim and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places. You know, by time, you know, time goes on, you know what I'm saying, they was doing our heritage. See, if you go to 17 verse 21, you'll see it say, so these nations feared the Elohim and served their graven images, both their children and their children's, as did their fathers, so do they unto this day. And that's showing up the truth, how they try to do our heritage in the laws that Moses give us, and then mix it with other stuff, them other religions, that Kabbalah stuff. All that stuff gonna be from Babylon. You know what I'm saying? All right, our heritage we abandoned to the Babylonian scribes. I showed how they was placed in our land in 722 BC. Okay, if you go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 44, verse 15. All right, Jeremiah. Shalom, it's the Israelite Brotherhood. It's a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. I'm showing about these Babylonian scribes. If you don't understand these Babylonian scribes and what happened to our history, then it's going to be hard to understand what happened to us and view history kind of correctly, because it's two histories that exist. It's Jewish history and it's Hebrew Israelite history, and the majority of the brothers and sisters be teaching and pushing Jewish history. That's going to be the history from these scribes, these Babylonian scribes right here. All right, but if you go to chapter 44 of the book of Jeremiah, this is like 134 years after them people was placed, them Sepharvaim, those Babylonian scribes. And we went into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion. I got videos showing how the Egyptians tricked us up out of our covenant because they had to do trade on the other side of the promised land. See, Hebrews don't know that the Egyptians had relatives on the other side of the promised land, and they had to do trade with them. And us having that covenant us having that covenant right in the middle of, they passage kind of like blocked them. So they, put that golden calf on us every chance they got. And King Josiah had cleansed it up. Before he died, he was a king from prophecy. And after he cleansed it up, the Egyptians killed him and put his son on the throne that, was weak. And the rest of his relatives, we went back to Egyptian worship. And it was summed up in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18. We told the prophet Jeremiah to tell the creator that we wasn't going to do the law. We had sent the prophet Jeremiah off to get word from the creator on what we should do, because the Babylonians had burnt the whole town down. They had burnt the whole town down. The king houses up, everybody houses up. And we was running into Africa to get away, from them. And this is what we said. All right, chapter 44, verse 15. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken to us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we would do so. But we would do whatsoever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done when our fathers, our princes, and our kings in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food and were well and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things and have been consumed by the sword. All right, that was a mindset. And we went into Africa and we left books and everything. We left books and everything. And the land was empty for 50 years, from 588 BC to 538 BC, 50 years. And when them Hebrews, come back home, let's show that the land was empty too while we was gone. All right. Jeremiah 44, verse 2. This said the Elohim of hosts, the Yah of Israel, ye have seen all the evil that I have brought upon Jerusalem and upon all the cities of Judah. And behold, this day they are a desolation, and no man dwelleth therein. Also, if you go to Second Kings chapter 20, 2 Kings chapter 25, verse 26. 25, verse 26. All right. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they was afraid of the Chaldeans. It's really, we was afraid of Ashkenazi. Ashkenazi was on them horses in the book of Lamentations, going to our troubles that, we was having running up, out of the promised land going into Egypt. We ain't had no water, we ain't had no food, we was wet and dirty. We was all messed up. We was on Egyptian religion. They done burnt the town down. All the disasters, everything was on us. Everything was on us because we had said we wanted to worship those Egyptian religions. Okay, we abandoned everything to the Babylonian scribes, the Sephardis. They gonna be the oldest ones in the land. They been in the land longer than Ashkenazi. That's why come Ashkenazi and the Seth Hardy groups be having proxy wars, is because both of them know that they not the original people, and the Sephardis was there since 722 BC. But when they come back, when they was placed in the promised land, they was like kin to the Babylonians, the people that chased us into Africa. Is why come you didn't see them get bothered in no kind of way throughout Tanakh history. Matter of fact, they had it so good that their name kind of disappeared out the Bible, was how good they had it. They name disappeared out of Tanakh history. It's how good that they had it. They started mixing with them Edomites and all those other people. And then they started writing books around the Greek time, because when those exiles come back from Babylon, that less than 1%, Prophet Isaiah had already made prophecies about them and what will happen to them and how they will be destroyed. That 10th, day of that 10th. You know what I'm saying? That holy seed that will be dropped off like some dead leaves is basically what he said. And then that's what happened to them. You know, they was destroyed because they come back and they start mixing with the people in the land, and we couldn't pass heritage off to the strangers and the enemies. You know, that's why come you don't see them up under the curses. But anyway, we Hebrews abandoned our heritage to the Babylonian scribes, the Sephardis. And those are the oldest Jews, you know, that occupied our heritage. And they're responsible for all the books